This conference will now be recorded.
No, that's fine. No one is on there yet, right? Okay, so no one missed anything. I don't have to start over. So we'll go round robin roll call, and we will start with John.
John Huddle, City Administrator Pro Tem.
Here you go.
John Isidore, Public Works. Gregory Teddy, City Council.
Greg Burns, City Council. Tim Pogwizd, Councilor. Pat Cox, Mayor.
Gary Melvin, City Administrator Pro Tem. Two more.
Corey Ashour, citizen.
Nan Delightful, City Councilor.
Barbara Wright, citizen.
Thank you. All right, so that's got everyone covered. I'm just gonna hand it right on over to Gary, my favorite Kenji.
Okay, so we bracketed an hour for this meeting. I just wanted to get that out in advance. It's not intended to be an intensive discussion of all aspects of the budget. It's intended to be an introductory meeting. Just by way of background, the city adopted a budget last year. There's been some difficulty in identifying which version of the budget was approved and entered into the system. Working with our staff, we've done the best we can to construct what was approved last year and put it into a spreadsheet form. Dean Elaine and I have been working to take that spreadsheet, which looks like this. I think yours is not correctly. And do a little work with it to see where we are year to date on each of the income and expenditure funds and line items. Do some projections as to where we think we'll be at the end of the fiscal year, which is June 30th. And then just at an initial escalator for the coming year, see what it looks like if we just had the 3.5%. We're way past the period when we should have started work on the budget, but it's hard to work on the budget when you don't have to work from it. So I've already started doing some fine tuning. The estimates for next year, John Huddle is going to pick that up soon. And our strategy, my strategy is continuing along with John, is to do a pretty basic approach to the budget this year, looking at the past year, kind of updating numbers, looking at the highlights on issues that we need to address and bring to your immediate attention, so we can think about this with a post-budget meeting, as opposed to this work. So I don't know how much you went into how the budget was structured last year, but the budget of the city is really not a single budget. It is a compilation of multiple department budgets and fund budgets. It's like having a business with multiple subsidiaries, if you will, and it all comes together in a single document. It's 34 pages in length. It has more line items than I'm used to seeing in a budget 10 times this size. And that is something I think John and I agree on needs to be dealt with by consolidating some of its line items. Some of them are very small. Some of them there were questions about what do you charge for this item, line item versus this line item over here, splitting it up in a couple ways. It's just too much work to try to continue to maintain it in this form. That's editorial for today. So I'm going to go through the budget page by page as quickly as I can to bring things to your attention, but there are several things on this sheet, the memo, that I wanted to bring to your attention immediately. That these are issues that need to be thought through for this and coming year. Major concerns that I have about the budget overall is that if the city, for example, on page 1, projected Revenue from traffic citations at $270,000. Well, 3 years ago, that was a pretty good estimate. But that traffic citation revenue is down substantially. It's down by $100,000. And there are several reasons for that. One is that traffic through town has been impacted by things like slides and inclement weather, reducing the traffic volumes. Like we have I believe, a half-time traffic officer now, whereas full-time, someone close to full-time in the past. The purpose of having an active traffic enforcement program is not to generate revenue, but as a matter of fact, for the general fund in Port Orford, it's the second largest source of revenue to operate the city. It's not restricted. You can use it for any purpose. Looking ahead to next year, I talked with the regional ODOT manager this afternoon. They're going to be paving Highway 101 this summer. That will be starting in August, just in time for our budget. That will, I think, similarly be disruptive on this line item. And I'm recommending that it be maintained at about the same level that it is this year and not go back to the more optimistic earlier number. This past year, you'll see on page 1 also a line item called miscellaneous receipts. And usually that's a pretty small item, kind of like any kind of revenue that comes in that doesn't fit in any other category gets thrown into this. And you can see that it's typically very nominal. It was budgeted last year at $100 for the entire year. But the revenue received this year was $128,000. What is that? That's COVID relief money. ARPA funds. One time funding that came through. Fortunately, it is a little more than the loss in the citation revenue. So we've got kind of a balancing activity going on. But that's not coming next year. And we're estimating the citation revenue that's staying down. So as you're going through talking about your general fund budget and how you use it, for example, the city transfers a lot of general fund money. $350,000, $450,000. You're subsidizing water rates to the tune of $450,000. Something that you need to resolve. Again,
Can you just state that again so everybody understands and hears what you just said?
The city is transferring, I think it is $450,000 annually out of the general fund. General fund is all our miscellaneous revenue, property tax, citation revenue, state shared revenue. That's nothing to do with water users. And you're using 450,000 of that $1.5 million, probably a third of it, to subsidize water rates.
That's never happened, to the best of my knowledge, by the way. And I'm starting to wonder why that's the case. Does it have anything to do with the property we bought up at the watershed?
No.
Or I guess we've never had $450,000 subsidized.
Are you sure we had it? It's that they're using subsidized, but it's the transfer that's not.
Right. We've always had rate adjustments, which we didn't have last year for whatever reason that we needed to, but it only was like usually $60,000 to $100,000 what we had to adjust to, not $450,000. So I'm wondering.
Doesn't show the transfers for the last 3 years.
I didn't go
It's
back.
costing a lot more to make water, clean water.
No, basically, correct me if I'm wrong, Gary, but I think he's saying that you can't just make general fund transfers into the water enterprise fund because there's certain stipulations to that kind of transfer. So we have to be careful. So, because that general fund money is tax money. So we have to be careful not to subsidize the water enterprise fund with tax money.
Right.
Water fund, if I could,
I understand, but we've never been in that position. Go ahead.
If I could. So I've been looking at a different set of documents, but this is, and Gary, this is this thing that shows actuals from 2017, 18, 19, 20. So this is a few years of back stuff. So if you can look, this is the general fund and this is the going out of the general fund. And here you've got transfer to water enterprise. So in
Right,
2017, 18, it was nothing. In 2018,
Correct.
19, it was nothing.
correct,
Then it was 80, then it was 60.
correct.
And then it was 400.
That's exactly what I'm trying to say.
Oh, just this last.
Yeah, we never had to transfer that amount of money, so I would ask, why are we having
That amount of money.
all of a sudden?
I think that was for funding the dredging and,
we get to that fund.
what's that?
When we get to that fund, it's more that.
Okay, good, thank you.
And the thing about it is sort of the same amount approximately as the land, but I know David Johnson had put that in the budget like 3 years ago or something.
That's what I know. It's just the only thing purchase I can think of.
But we'll let Gary finish his budget message. You know.
So I just wanted to bring the red flags up of the loss or the shortage in citation revenue and the unbudgeted income from COVID relief in there. And then overall, the general fund revenue is expected to slightly exceed the amount budgeted. And expenditures are running just under projection. So the general fund is actually okay, but it could be better. And it's not going to be as good next year. With some of these revenue loss. So then we've got this of the allocation of transfers. And my sheet's missing page 2.
I think
There's a double print.
Yeah, the double-sided print.
Here's my.
Not no.
All right, so I noted here, there's a $350,000 budget transfer to the public safety fund from the general fund. And if you've got reduced citation revenue, that means you have less money to transfer either water or public safety or both. The amount, what that also says is that the amount of your levy is not sufficient to carry. So cover those items. Auditing costs are substantially exceeding the amounts budgeted. I think we don't want, at least the council members. We've had trouble having the audit completed. We've had the auditor charging additional fees, almost double the contracted to complete the audit because of deficiencies in the information the city provided for the audit. I think. So there may be some of that next year, but I don't expect it will be at the level of it.
Joseph, could you mark down that counselor with give it back?
Number 5, transient lodging tax. The good news is that it's up by $47,000 over the other. Parks expenditures are exceeding the budgeted amount in a number of areas. And taking a look at that fund on starting on page 8, you see the transient lodging tax within that fund, and it's well above the estimate. There's a $50,000 expenditure item in here that when I did this consider last week, there had been no expenditures. We had about 8,000 in expenditures come in from the Main Street program yesterday. So there are some expenditures against that line item now. Oh, sorry, skipping back on page 9. I think there's some mistakes that were made in the budgeting last year. This budget shows that the entire time that John Isidore spends in parks is $1,000 a year. And that's not right. John spends a lot more time in parks. And one of the notes I've got made here is over on the side, you've got a little print that says personnel with $37,235 item. I'm recommending that you don't have a line item for every single city employee, because their time changes, people change, rates of pay change, and you can throw that, and you've got all these little line items. So if you can collapse that into a personnel item, and benefits, it'll make these comparisons a lot easier. So the real amount we've been charging, John's, for example, for parks is about 10,000, there's about 10,000, well, 7,000. So that I think is just a mistake. So back to page 10. A lot of overages in small amounts in a lot of areas like Buffington Park and some small tools, and Parks Committee projects. The total amount budgeted for Parks Committee projects was $47.58. I think the park benches and that one project alone was over $9,000. When you're taking action on those items, you need to make sure that there's sufficient funding in the line item or designate somewhere where the money could be allocated. Versus a change in custodial services, and I think this is also a reflection of how we're now going to respread that in the park. So you've got a projected positive fund balance in parks at 80,000, but that's really only if you don't spend all 50,000. It doesn't, this is May, doesn't look like we're going to get. Again, this is all high level. Public safety, I didn't see any big red flags in public safety. Insurance and bonds, which I put in red on my copy, is over the rates on insurance and insurance for general liability and such, well above what was anticipated last year. Public safety has a sort of unanswered question for me. Every other fund starts out the year with a positive fund balance. There's money in the checking account. Public safety started out the year with a negative. I have never seen that before. Don't know why that's the case. I didn't go back in history to try to figure it out. But somehow that needs to come out.
You just lost me too, Gary.
It's on page 14.
14.
Sorry.
Is that because perhaps of the low revenue, like low revenue with the slide, or?
I don't know.
I'm thinking maybe there was a last minute purchase that like didn't clear, like it was purchased on June 30th or 29th or something, and then I wouldn't even do it. Yeah, but you wouldn't start with a negative at the start of the year.
I wouldn't carry over a negative
No, that's what he's saying. That's why he's never seen that before.
So,
I don't see the negative balance.
I'm gonna talk.
Page, the negative balance, the beginning negative balance in public safety is, on page 12. It shows a negative beginning balance in the resolution that was approved of 114,000.
So.
So I don't know if any of you remember that, whether it was presented at all. When the city adopted the budget, it was negative negative.
Do you remember approving the budget?
Was I at the budget meeting? I don't know if I was there because it happened one meeting.
I can't even remember.
And then we had, but now I'm looking at this, and I'm wondering if it was, how this was input into the system, if it's those, going back to those wages of it starting off a negative balance because of those expenses. No, this is resources, it has nothing to do with it. It's just,
So,
but that definitely, so that throws all these numbers off.
so what we need to do this year is fix it.
Well, and also I saw, I don't think we ever spent $50,000 on advertising in this.
That's TLT money.
I know what money it is, but I mean, we've never spent that kind of money on advertising, so I don't know what happened.
It's the Chamber of Commerce money that we have. That's the old Chamber of Commerce money.
That's all the collected.
Yes, that was all the old Chamber of Commerce money.
Chamber of Commerce hasn't been in business for probably 5 or 6 years. And we never budgeted $50,000. We can look back in 2019, we can look back at last year's budgets. We've never spent $50,000 on advertising.
But a lot of this could be simple mistakes.
To be,
And I mean, that's kind of more like he's pointing out this huge mistake, obviously, but it's just fixed by balance. But,
Yeah. So anyway, there are some things like Gary's already seen that are.
Mr. Me, I'm not sure if it was Mr. Me.
Yeah, I mean, because we never get this report. We never get 1 year of report. Our report is multiple years with a percentage on the side. It's much harder to assimilate, so.
I think. I mean, first.
I think the percentages are good.
Trend.
So this is stuff that John, working on the budget going forward, based upon input and none today, can be helpful in figuring out what to do next year. If you're not accustomed to spending 50,000 a year on advertising, then,
Well, I think it's required. I mean, there's a requirement that we spend so much of that TLT fund on.
If you ended up not spending it, $52,000.
But that's different than budgeting $50,000.
Right.
That's what I'm getting at.
Right.
I'm okay that we have money left over because of COVID and all that, and it's accumulated, but
then,
we never used to budget $50,000.
then it should go into a reserve and not in a line item.
Is it being counted twice? Is it coming as TLT?
That's what I'm-
It works, and no, because it didn't work.
That's what I'm saying, might be a clerical error.
Right, I've never seen it in, I've never seen it.
It's around 10 to 12,000 a year
Yeah.
for advertising.
Right,
Because Main Street's.
Main Street, I remember the year that they both came in and wanted it.
Well, we'll see those trends at the actual budget meeting. He's just putting,
Okay.
getting us to the point of,
Yeah.
getting through this stuff.
This is basically a report on.
Yeah, no, I remember these before.
Yeah, that's what I was
But a lot of
pointing
it is
out.
never,
Well, it's definitely needed.
yeah.
Well, and it's definitely, I mean, and this is super important, this next 40 minutes we have, as soon as Gary gets done, like, like, John, the more direction we could give him, the better off we're gonna be. A lot of this stuff is kind of obvious, but there's some big questions too that I don't even know how much we can talk about at the budget committee workshop. Or can we talk about anything we want as far as engineering and bids and all
Well, I'd
that?
like to get through this, but John's working on that.
Okay, go ahead, sorry.
I'm going to jump to page 15. And here we've got the Hubbard's Creek Water. What's it as a grant, it's actually a loan. And it's a partially forgivable loan. The total amount of the loan, I think, is more, and if you could correct me, about 780.
Yeah, it's like 800,000.
And I think it's about 50% forgivable.
50% forgivable, yeah.
So the biggest unanswered question for me here, I still don't have an answer, and that is, we're now in mid-May. The year ends June 30th. There's some properties in escrow. There's a financing agreement that needs to be approved probably in June. Which year do I book this? And I've asked that question of the state. I've asked the question, do we book the full 800,000 and somehow adjust the grant out? You know, so I'm looking for some guidance from the state on how to do that. So that's a big unanswered technical.
And I have access to a real good technical finance director. And I didn't know Gary was wrestling with that question until this afternoon, but I've been on the phone with her a couple times today, and she's really good. And I think she can give me the accounting answer, and then we'll try to see how that fits.
Because in my experience with like our bond, you only budget for what you're expending that year. Even though you know it's 800,000 on the phone, you only budget for what you're expending that year. Because if you budget the 800,000, you're going to be 700 whatever short of the payment.
The
But,
closing date will likely be in late July or August. So that's when, I don't know if that's the date.
So if it's July,
That's good.
if it's July, then it all goes into the next fiscal year.
Yeah. What Gary and I were thinking, I mean, at least I was thinking, I asked Gary, I said, well, if I'm the state and, you know, I've got a fiscal deadline coming up, I'd like to get everything closed and paid and put away before that fiscal deadline, so I don't have to deal with it in the next budget cycle, but we don't know how they operate. But, and we also have some documents to sign regarding the title and the transfer and stuff.
I'm not much of a landowner, but isn't escrow a set date for every purchase? Like, is it 90 days?
Yes and
No,
no.
what it.
Okay, so that's because if it was 90 days, then when did we start?
The date is started and the closing date is like August 31st.
Okay.
And the state specifically asked for it to be out late just in case it dragged on. They were going to try to do it sooner, but we will have more, we can track down some more information and I can help you with that.
So that's-
I can work on that.
There's a thing.
Gotcha.
But it may be closer to 400,000, which is good, because then there may be 120,000.
Well, or whatever the payment is times 12 is what it should be budgeted.
I'll talk to my accountant on call. But also, as we're having this meeting, before I got hired, I watched one of your all's meeting, one of our meetings on the TV, and her voice came in the very best out of everyone. And if you notice her technique, she goes close to the microphone and speaks very slowly, and that's going to make a better record, because then one of your items was to approve minutes, and when we were reading the minutes, it said garbled or unintelligible. So real basics, just get close to the microphone, speak slowly, and that way our minute maker can make good minutes. People who are watching on tape can see. So sorry about that diversion. I don't mean to, whatever you call that, talk down or anything.
So moving on page 15, thank you, John. Water usage revenue is down, not so surprising us, we're but we're about 40,000 short of where we thought we would be on water revenue. And of course, you have ended the curtailment fee program, so we won't be budgeting that at zero. So we'll make those adjustments. And I note again here that the transfer from the general fund is, yeah, the rates just aren't keeping up with it. There's no single big expenditure that's making up that difference. And we might as well pause here and talk about the elephant in this fund, which is the engineering contract. John, I'm leaving him with that for several reasons, because that's a really big one. You've executed an engineering contract with Civil West to put together this grant application on the and it's engineering to identify projects and get them ready for the bid. It's a big project multifaceted. When I contacted Civil West several weeks ago, I asked them, well, I'm working on the budget. I need to know about how much more money you expect us to be paying for this current fiscal year, and how much for next fiscal year, for the full year. The estimate that I got back was 95,000 for this fiscal. More.
Before June 30?
Yes. And 650,000 for next fiscal year.
So we did vote and agree at about $700,000 on the larger engineering package, right? And,
Well, the whole kit and boot, yeah.
yeah, but,
I was stressed out about it.
you were, and I wonder,
With that in mind, there are several water funds, but in the water enterprise fund, if you look at the top line item on page 15, fund balance. That's how much money we started out the year with.
we don't have.
So it looks like you're from the 450,000 that, Tim, if I'm wrong, that transfer is intended to be funding the engineering. But we didn't see that.
But the answer is I'm still on.
When we look further down in the expenditure budget, it looks like it was. This was there aren't any expenditures applied against it. Right.
This all happened before, like the budget happened before any of the group grant discussion or any of the engineering, or like, how can there be correlation if this budget was made before we even started that discussion?
Well, no, he's right. The 450 was put in there for projects between wastewater. And she stuck it all into it prior to engineering. That's exactly what.
To make it available for projects that you had on the bone for water and sewer, that had nothing to do with the, like the grid system and the other stuff that we were gonna do this year.
200,000 of it waiting
Sorry
for
interrupting.
the Hummus pond.
That's good, because there was the water, 450, nothing was spent. So should we make a budget adjustment?
Well, so question, Gary, just to clarify, we're still on page 15
15.
and we're looking at transfer from general fund of $450,000. And it's the appropriation resolution of the budgeted amount of that year was 450, but then the year to date so far spending in this document was prepared was only 50,000 out of that. And then they said they're going to have another 50.
Well, this was not budgeted for me.
Okay, so,
I'm
sorry.
What we're confirming tonight
yep,
is that 450 was for construction.
Yes.
Not engineering.
okay.
And I can
So,
add that with the water meters that we have planned, the skid pump that you have on the phone, the grid system, like, that number clicks in my head for the transfer that we've made, the changes.
Yeah,
But none of this reflects anything to the brick grant, and I think that's where the supplemental budget that we had on the horizon, that's what it was before, but we obviously
well, we voted for it.
tripped.
But we
So,
were told we had,
but I mean, as far as that, when we should have been doing the supplemental budget to make the transfer changes where we have the money available for the engineering, that's the step that we haven't taken within this budget.
So I understand you were told you had $3 million in the bank. Yeah, that's true. That's not in the water.
It's where is the money appropriated is the question.
Yeah.
So if you want to pay for it out of some other fund, like general, you can certainly do that. You can't pay it out of the public safety fund. Or, a bond fund or something. You can certainly pay for that. I think it would be a reasonable expenditure out of the general fund. Community benefit. Better if it was out of the water fund, that's what customers should be paying for the improvement. But that's a decision that you need to make that hasn't been made, to where the money is. And we need to know that before we can start.
Sorry to interrupt. I have a question again. I'm new, and so I want to take advantage of my total lack of history. And John Isidore, from what I've heard from you, the 450 that was transferred from the general fund on page 15 down there, 4 lines from the bottom, was for projects to the water and sewer system that were already scheduled or thought about. And then this says year to date, so far we've spent not all of that, and we have some of that left over. And from the history that we looked at that I was showing Tim Pogwitz, we hadn't in the past. So Gary Milliman, when you say we are subsidizing the water fund, the general fund to the tune of $450,000, we haven't spent all that $450,000 yet, but we are spending general fund money on water projects that are planned. And what you're saying is we should build planned water projects into the water rate. Okay. But it's still in the big public purpose. It's an okay expensive general fund to that. Okay.
And in this fiscal year, if you're only going to spend 50,000 on water, and you got 450,000 budget, it's that funding we use for, is that the transfer that we use for the engineering?
we also need to discuss that engineering further. I mean, how many shovel-ready projects do we need?
To me, the first question on that would be how much is available in the water enterprise fund, without any general fund or anything, what's available, because then we can go to them and say, we don't have this much available. Maybe you could slow down on 195, because this is what we have available for this project.
We can slow that down at any time. We approved it, but we can stop it.
Yeah, we don't want to hurt the relationship, but if you don't have money.
No, it's not too little still. That was,
We need to
it's
allocate.
a piece
time.
of things together is what it was, because I'm thinking about that.
Well, I'll be happy to take a look at that contract and all that and reconcile it with the budget and your directions on that.
And one thing I think we need to do is get clear on what the priorities are. I think we are all pretty much in alignment about what we think the priorities are with dealing with the water storage as the
Right.
primary priority. And just make sure that aligns with what they're doing.
I think that we did tell them.
We did direct them. We were very clear about
It would be nice to get a summary from the engineers on what they have
There.
done and what they have planned.
I believe Gary got that. He sent you a summary, right?
So, Gary, if I'm going to be preparing this budget and you're saying this might be an issue, is it as simple as we budgeted this current year for 450, we're not going to spend all that 450. What does the board or the council want me to budget for the next year? What kind of what we're looking at. Okay, all right.
Can I ask John a question, since you said that those 450 was for things you wanted to do, including that hummus pond, which needs to be cleaned,
So it has to be.
and we've only spent the 50. I mean, are you still thinking that we need to spend that 400,000, or what happened? Why didn't we spend the 400,000, I guess, yet?
We couldn't align the stars to make it clean happen.
Yeah.
Really, to get it all in just to everything to line up within this budget year. So Herd Farms out of Lewisburg gave us a quote for 190,000 last year. Then we had too much water. We don't want to pay 17 cents a gallon, disposal, 17 cents a gallon to pick it up. So we decided we'd wait, and then it rained all winter, so we couldn't do it. So now September's coming, and we want to do it in September. He is gonna live with his 190 price, doesn't see it changing much, and that depends on how many truckloads we have taken out of there.
So we still need that 200,000, I guess is what you're saying.
Oh,
I just want-
And that was my fault, because I did include it in the budget list and it gave Gary, because I made the assumption that, and I forgot that Jessica was no longer here. But I asked her, when we put that 450 in there, we can buy a bunch of projects, and I said, can we use it at wastewater too? And she assured me, yes, we could by moving it. That was all the council meeting. So we kind of let it sit there, but we didn't spend a lot of it. And the funny thing is, part of that was for the grid system, part of that was for the. So,
Meters.
yeah, you're right, part of it was for meters.
So that needs to be clarified going forward.
Yeah,
Okay,
we're gonna have to hammer that out in the way.
So the first question to you would be, what do you have left in this year that's not already been bought?
In this year,
Yeah, in the next month and a half?
I'm just waiting until the next month.
Not that, I shouldn't say that.
Right. If nothing blows up, I'm doing gutter chemicals and all that stuff. I communicated with them, make sure that we didn't have anything pending between now and
Pump skid for,
That's at least 2 months out probably. The one for Coast Guard Hill,
right,
that's several months. I said I get a all.
yeah, but it's not anything we need to buy in this fiscal year.
No, we put it in next fiscal year.
Okay, cool, sorry, I'm.
No, it's
I'm
okay.
behind.
We actually included Arizona lift station too. Remember, we included
Yeah.
the meeting, but
Yeah.
never budgeted. So I gave that second year. We got it in this.
Yes, no, I know.
It's on the shop.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah.
okay, I'm sorry, Gary, do you think we've exhaustively covered that? Does anyone else have any?
I think the council, I think the council needs to revisit how they contract. What's that? What the timeline is and hiring people.
And when you say the council needs to, typically the council directs staff to do that. The engineering firm and present to council. So that, it's not going to happen probably. Honestly, council, my first priority is getting this budget with the deadlines we're on to. So the report that we're looking for is going to come after we get this budget done. And this money will likely be carried over, essentially, where you see it as, you've seen these other, in the fund balance, it'll just show us in the fund balance, if we're still going to use it for the intended purposes that it was approved for in the first place. Not really a huge issue other than what Gary's talking about, which is a secondary issue, whether we pump the brakes on the engineering contract. And that's a decision we can make. But Gary, didn't you say those engineers, I know it says 50,000 year to date, but haven't they submitted like another 80 grand worth of bills?
Yeah.
before that, or was it 90 or something before the end of this? So that number will go up.
And that's what's going to get first.
Okay.
Now, the 750 to Civil West was going to be to do all the pre-engineering, or if we got all of the brick grant.
Or for parts of it, I think, only just a couple
No, no,
parts.
until we got the grid grant, we decided to start paying them the $700,000 to see if we were gonna get.
Well, so if they prepare shovel ready project.
What we need was
That
this.
was the gamble.
That's what it was. That's what it was, is that, in my experience, that shovel-ready projects get funded.
Correct.
And
100%.
And so we needed, rather than to throw it all on the line with this brick grant thing or projects that weren't even ready to go, was to get things ready to go.
Right.
Right, and then we could apply a piecemeal and do them for smaller grants, whatever this, and that was my understanding, that was my suggestion, but I don't know, is that how we ended up?
I thought it was more that if we got the grant, we couldn't start them to make it, to do all of what Civil West is doing right now.
Right, we have to do it ahead of time, so we have the shovel
Because
ready.
you only have 3 years to spend the grant money. We don't want to spend a year.
That's
Yeah,
correct.
three, yeah.
That's all part of it.
But we do have some shovel-ready projects, and with the report that you received, hopefully we can see and you can share with us, we can decide where we're at. We need to decide, do we hit the accelerator, do we hit the brakes, do we keep rolling with what we got? We just need to kind of know.
I would like to make sure that we're spending the money in a way that we're actually getting some construction, something done as well as planning. And I know we have to do both, but we don't want to be looking our pants down.
Well, you gotta remember, we decided we'd only do the engineering portion of it shovel ready because that part could come out of the grant. But we couldn't do any construction part to the grant, otherwise it was cost. But I agree, I think the priority one stuff should have been shovel ready, and we can hold back on the priority twos and threes.
Correct.
I mean, plus now you gotta remember, because we did give them direction to go after the impound raw water storage facility, so we can even start this whole thing with it ready, you know, so. I mean, if we get to there, then we could definitely slow down, right?
That's what it was, because we were,
Right,
we didn't have any water.
right.
You know, what are we gonna do, all these projects, we got no water? So it was, let's get water and then argue about what we would do with it next year.
So we just want to reiterate the priority. We just want, we go over the priority list, and that's basically the whole conversation that we need to have. right now.
Make sure we can afford it.
Clear enough for me. Clear enough for me.
I don't believe that.
So I'm, are we ready for the next item?
Yeah, I've only got one more in this high level discussion. And that's on page 24. Page 24, wastewater facility plan, $100,000.
I saw this and the only thing I can think of, they were gonna update the wastewater. But it was only a couple years older than the one that we're working on. I don't know. I don't know why the comment.
So nothing has been initiated. That money is not going to get spent.
That's correct.
And you should talk about, in your new budget, you talk about whether that's something you want the budget to do.
Is that for a plan or a plan?
No, I thought it was, I think it was for rewriting the master plan for wastewater.
Civil West.
I don't remember having that discussion.
Well, I mean, it's that old, the master plan?
It's 2 years older than the water. The water's 15, right?
To the water 7, I believe.
So we used to live in a world where those lasted for 20 years.
Yeah, well, if it's, you should update it every 5 to 10.
Well,
They gotta be 10, they like.
Yeah, they like
That's hard.
10, but they used to want 5.
Well, if it's $100,000 for 5, I mean, that's getting pretty expensive if you had to spend that every 5 years.
Yeah, but if you know you're $100,000 short and we can squeak by for another year without doing it, we might need to think about that.
I'll work with John on that. So we can just move that 100 grand into the maintenance side.
So those are the high level numbers on this 30-some page packet. I encourage you to look at these. And you got a question?
That's me.
Talk to John.
But it's, because I like this, what I've also liked is the discussion. And for me, not having the history, and you guys are, what I saw is that you guys know exactly what's going on. So I really am encouraged.
So before the meeting wraps up, we have the meeting immediately. This is these are the budget requests that I received from Public Works and Police. It's basically shopping list. At some point, we need to have, I think, in your next meeting, you can have a discussion about which of these are going to end up in this budget. But I don't think you're going to find $1.2 million in this budget. I think everybody.
So in the past, Gary, just So the finance director, which we no longer have, which we probably need again someday, would go over with the departments on these wish lists, and they would hash it out together.
Yep.
And it was hard on relationships at times because we had a financial director that was very fiscally responsible. So,
And John can certainly do that.
yes, and John, what I'm getting at is we're gonna have 7 different opinions here on these items, where I think, the department heads can get together with John and work on it, and if they get, a headlock, and I think they're both reasonable people, and I'm sure they'll get it done.
Well, I wasn't sure what the culture was, and
I just was trying to,
given that it's a administrative system and a system.
Yeah.
That's certainly what I was using.
thank you.
And if I could, Councilmember Poggins and the rest of you all, that's the model that I'm familiar with. Every department would go to the finance director, kind of hat in hand, saying, this is what I like, and the finance directors would say, where is it coming from? And this is what you can have, and there's some horse trading going on. And then you bring a document to the council for presentation, and then Gary's giving you this document with the 7 or 8 items. Hopefully, when you get to the budget meeting, there's only, you got to whittle down to a few. So that's what I see my service to the council and city as, is to hash out some of these things before we get to the budget meetings that we'll be presenting.
And part 2 of this is that if there are any projects that you have in mind, as council, that I know, Councilmember X, as I know that there are projects that are supposed to do on this list. Rather than wait until next April to decide to spend money on something that's not in the budget, now is the time to bring those forward.
You mean now or talking to John in the coming days?
Talking to me in the coming days, because what I need to do, so to adopt a city budget, most of you have been through it a time or two, but essentially there's a notice period and a meeting with the budget committee, and then there's a notice period and a meeting with the city council. And we have to have everything finished by the end of June, and we're in the middle of May. So we've got about 6 weeks to do about something that we could possibly do the shortest possible time is 4 weeks. So my biggest priority for my first order of business is going to be knocking out this budget and getting the notices published. And again, I have some good resources to draw from, plus I have some personal experience. So we'll get her done, and everything will be okay. It'll be a little stressful. Yeah, that's okay.
Can I say one thing? I'm just going to read, I believe this is from Gary. So it says 23-24 budget proposals from departments and others. Just for all of us to keep in mind, it is my recommendation that the city budget very conservatively for the next fiscal year. So that's just one thing we all need to keep in mind.
And my phrase is what's called a status quo budget, where we really don't make any big changes, especially for me as a first timer to try to come in and do some, high finance with a bunch of changes. I'm not ready for that yet. So I'm going to try to, all due respect, just try to just stay the course and not make a lot of changes. And it sounds like to me, we have a pretty good explanation of why our budget and why some of these items look like they do. And we'll work within those parameters. Thank you all. That was super helpful for me. So I really appreciate it.
Yeah. If I close this meeting now, we can stretch our legs for 4 minutes.
Is it 4 minutes?
We will keep you posted on that. This was basically because unfortunately, Gary is
The next meeting.
moving on today, so he wants to get that all out.
I will have a notice and you'll get a copy of it. Right now, this is kind of old last year's stuff. You'll get this like in your stuff.
Okay. I will get.
We asked her about digging it down.
Can you please make sure that on your way out, I information, but you can make sure that Dina and Keely have your contact information. So when it comes back to email notices, that everything is updated. We don't want to take for granted, like, oh, they know.
Somebody emailed me. Yeah. I don't know who, I don't remember.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, Joe, so we give you the contact.
I have been in charge of
Where are you?
contacting.
Sorry?
Yes, I've been contacting.
Joseph's our reporter.
So you contacted us. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And you keep us. So you
Good.
have our.
I have your
Yeah,
emails.
good.
I
Hope so. Yeah, I appreciate it.
really, I thought, felt like I
No,
didn't
no,
give you
no,
enough.
yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll keep giving you at least, as much notice as I possibly
Yeah.
can. It's nice to meet you.
Great
Can I get your
meeting
name?
you. Corey Ashour.
Yeah, Miss Ashour?
Nice meeting you. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Put a face to the.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
That's good.
Thank
Yep,
you.
It's nice to meet both of you. Thank you for doing work
Yeah.
for the budget.
Thank you.
Traffic, Turkey, 8 mile. Glad some people want to. Yeah, I've had traffic years or so in Canada. Like, you understand, I live in the middle of 54 miles without a traffic. And there's traffic at 27 miles in either direction. That's it. Yeah, no. And even there's only 27 miles away, 27 miles away. Yeah. It's crazy. Yeah. And honestly, it's traffic is by some sort of an accident or something. There's stuff coming.
I'm sure they'll receive.
It said, but if you are 15 minutes late in my county, you're straight. It's like, what?